You know, every once in a while, I get the privilege of meeting somebody that has some incredible stories to share with everyone. And one such person is a guy called Paul, and his true and incredible stories of his life experiences at his profession. Now, we've all seen lightning. It's one of the fascinating wonders of nature, but it can be deadly if up close or even struck. And we've seen it many a time. And they say that 200 to 400 people are struck by lightning each year, and 25 to 50 die, but most survive. Now, the one that's been hit the most by lightning, they called a human lightning rod, is Roy Sullivan, a park ranger out of Virginia. He'd been struck 7 times. Amazing. And it's just countless how many livestock has been struck by lightning under these trees trying to get out of the weather. So sad. But old Paul, he'd been struck 3 times by lightning. Of course, he don't want to break that record of 7. I'm sure he don't. But anyway, he had so many incredible other stories to share with you. So I sat down with him and interviewed him and let him tell his stories. I'm going to share with you a little story today of a good friend of mine I've met over a couple of years now that we deal firewood all the time, and he supplies me and we help each other out a little bit. And I got to knowing him, and he telling me some good old stories here. The best story I'd heard is I got scared to be around him on a cloudy day because he said he'd been hit by lightning 3 times. And I'm going to let him share his story with you. But first, I'm going to introduce you to you, Paul. Paul, this is Paul. And Paul, just tell me some general information. Where did you grow up at, buddy? Where you from?
Well, I was born in St. Louis. When he was about 6 years old, I moved to Nashville. Then graduated from high school from Nashville.
Oh, really?
Came here to Knoxville to UT, graduated in 78, and went to work professionally as a geologist, traveling around the country.
Well, you well-educated old country man, ain't you? Yeah.
Some people say so.
Well, you made a good living at it, didn't you?
Yes, I did. Thank you.
Well, how did you grow up there in Nashville when you was little? Did you live out in the country or suburbs? Or
It was
what?
mostly in the suburbs. If you're familiar with Nashville,
Well, I know a little bit about it.
There's an area called Bakertown. It's not too far from the airport.
Yeah.
And then there's Hermitage, which is near Andrew Jackson's home.
Yeah, I know
I graduated from high school there.
Yeah. Well, you done geology all your life, rock mining or coal mining or what?
I started with groundwater chemistry and then moved into oil work, and then I did some coal work, and then when I retired, I've been working with the environmental materials.
Yeah. Well, that's great. Well, how did you end up here in East Tennessee?
When I came here in 1970, I came here to go to UT, go to college, and married a local girl, and just worked until I retired to like 1995. And once I retired, I moved into Sevier County, built a home, stayed there, and 2017 I built this little house, and my wife and I moved here. She died in 2018.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I'm sorry to hear that. Well, anyway, I've known you for what, 3-4 years now? You know, delivering wood to me and stuff, and what I don't cut, never have to cut down a live tree. There's so many trees dead anymore that these old ash trees is all died. That green emerald moth come through here and killed them all, and they're still falling. They're dead, they're just still falling out of the woods, roots give out, and they give out in the woods. And there's a lot of firewood to get. Mm-hmm. And plus you get supplied by the tree trimmers, don't you?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
There's a lot of subdivision work that's going on, and they're cutting down trees and leaving them behind.
Yeah.
So I'll just go pick them up, make a little money with it.
It keeps you busy, don't it?
Keeps me busy.
Yeah,
Old man's got to do something.
Yeah, I'd say it does. But anyway, you just tell me these old stories about you growing up. You'd been hit by lightning 3 times. Well, you made me nervous every time it got cloudy or rainy that, what, you just a lightning rod.
Well, most people have enough sense to get in and out of the rain. Well, I never did have that much sense. I started out as a Boy Scout, being outdoors all the time. And the first time we were on a canoe trip on the Stones River in Nashville. It was a wet weekend. We pulled up on the bank and...
How old was you then?
Boy Scouts, probably 15.
That's a long time ago.
That's 60 years ago. Canoe started drifting away, so I went down to the bank, held on to a little tree there, grabbed hold the rope of the canoe, and it was at that moment that lightning decided it was going to jump for the sky, and I was in the middle of it.
Did it hit the water or hit the tree next to you?
All of it.
Oh, just all lit up?
The tree was in the water. I was in the water.
Oh, you was in a real conductor right there. How in the world did that not knock you out or kill you or something?
Well, it basically burned all the blood vessels in my waist where the water was. And, you know, I was holding on to the boat. There's not much else you can do. Just hold on.
Ah, good.
I didn't know anything about lightning at the time. I just thought, well, that's not comfortable. I got the boat drug up onto the bank and had to sit down for a while.
I'd say. Did you have any after effects off of that?
Well, I've been accused of showing after effects of it.
Did you glow in the dark then or anything?
Maybe.
Well, that was the first time. What was the second time?
Well, the second time, when I lived in Hermitage going to high school, I worked at a restaurant nearby called Rachel's Kitchen after Rachel Jackson. And I stepped out the back door one night to empty the trash, and there was this metal lamppost. Well, I held on to the metal lamppost as I was closing the lid on the trash can, and it got involved in the lightning, and I'm holding on to the stupid thing. It took about 10 minutes for me to get up off the ground.
Knocked you down?
Knocked me down, burned my hand, you know.
Well, it was storming all around you at that time?
That's it.
Yeah.
I never really cared. I just worked. You're supposed to do something, do it. Well, I did it.
Yeah.
The third time, I was working out in Texas. And my job at the time required that I walk out overland to a windmill that was about a mile off the road. And I had decided that I was going to walk up to this little hill and then walk out to the windmill and get my water sample and come back. This was for a professional activity. Well, it was about lunchtime. It was a gray day. There wasn't really raining. It was just cloudy. And I sat down under this tree to eat my lunch. And I was looking down on the ground, and there's these beautiful black shiny rocks. And so I was thinking back to college, what kind of rock is this? And then I realized that this is an iron rock like you'd find on an iron mine. And as I'm sitting there, I'm thinking to myself, I'm on a hill, on an iron mine, on a rainy day, on a hill, under a tree. And I'm thinking to myself, this is not the best place to be. And the tree and me and the whole hill was involved in lightning.
That was the highest point around there.
That was the highest point around.
There you go.
I might have thought better but I thought, it's going to be pretty up here on this hill looking out. It wasn't real pretty when it was hit by lightning. About 20 minutes later, I woke up and walked out to the windmill, and I was thinking as I was going to the windmill, I could have been near the windmill when lightning struck too.
So it just hit you and knocked you out.
Yep.
Didn't
It burned the bottom of my feet and ruined my shoes. That was a tough day.
You were just lucky there, buddy. I, know people up here in the growing up, and newspaper articles and stuff. People, lightning hit a tree next to the lake or rivers, or camping, and they'd run a little bit and it just killed them dead. Kill cattle, all the cattle laying around dead, hit by lightning.
Yeah.
That's a bad situation, but you survived it 3 times.
3 times.
You better thank the Lord, buddy.
Well, I've had people make jokes, somebody's after me. But,
No.
It can happen to anybody if you put yourself in the wrong place.
Yeah. But 3 times, Paul. You can think it just wasn't your time, and the good Lord has protected you there. You better thank the good Lord there. You survived 3 different times now.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people have been hit by lightning and survived, but not 3 times. My goodness.
And I never really thought about it because I always was outdoors. And if you're outdoors, you're going to be exposed to stuff.
Oh, yeah.
I've been around a lot of lightning, but, just involved in it 3 times.
Yeah. I've been around a lot of lightning, but I've never been hit or under a tree been hit. And I've seen it hit trees and hit stuff on the lake and stuff like that, but no, I've never been in that situation where I've been hit or it traveled around on me on the ground.
I don't recommend it.
No, I don't. Well, Paul, I have to ask you when I interview anybody and they tell stories and stuff, is there anything that you just can't explain you've seen over the years? You're an old man like me, and sometimes we see stuff that make you scratch your head. We don't know what it is at the time. You want to share any little stories like that?
Well, I do have a lot of stories, and I've seen a lot of things that are hard to describe to people. And as a geologist, I usually find reasons for it, but sometimes even the reasons themselves are unusual. In some of my adventures in the coal country of Tennessee and Kentucky, I go out to a coal mine, and on more than one occasion, I will be looking up in the hills, and there will be something that looks like Bigfoot.
Yeah.
It looks hairy and walking slow. And the coal miners will tell me, and they actually will have names for those, but they'll tell me, yeah, they have unknown creatures living in the hills. Well, over time, I come to the conclusion that there are actually people that just basically live full time. They're not hunters I'm missing. They're just people that live in the hills like that.
Off the grid, feral people.
Yeah, and they'll live in a cave.
Feral people.
And I have been to their caves. I've seen their caves. I've seen them with iron pots over open fires. I've seen children in there. I have explanations, but it's kind of like unbelievable sometimes.
Yeah,
the things you see.
You'd think in this day and time that, there's so many social programs out there that they could get set up and took care of, but they don't even want to be part of society.
No.
People don't hardly believe that these feral people exist, but they do.
There's one circumstance. I was up near Pall Mall, Tennessee, and my job was to go find this coal seam way back off the roads. After I got off the road and got off the gravel and got to a path, I got to the end of the path, and there was a family living in a stick house, not a log house. They basically put together a bunch of sticks and they were living there. And I had to get permission from them to walk past their house to go back to a little coal mine that they had. And that's how they stayed warm. Just go back and dig some coal out of the hills.
Out of the seam, yeah.
The children were barely wearing any clothes. There were no shoes. And this stick house was maybe 12 feet square, had sticks for a roof, and it was, you know, just. And when I was talking to these people, they spoke Elizabethan English. They'd been that way for hundreds of years, and they didn't send their kids to school, and they were very suspicious of everybody that came up. The man dug coal out of the hills and sold the coal, and that's how he made his money. They didn't have a car. They walked everywhere they went, and there was a horse. And there are lots of people living in that part of Appalachia just like that.
Not only there, you hear stories like that in other places. North Carolina, Virginia, all up down these Appalachians. But now I've seen some people that's really off the grid, but I can't say personally that I've seen feral people. And I've been all my life hunting and exploring in these old mountains up there, especially where you talking about. You get up there like big South Fork back up in that country and Jamestown, and you get on top on them ridges, mountain, you see 5 mountain ranges, and there's absolutely nothing there. Nothing. Right. Just gorges, rivers, backcountry.
Yeah.
And I've seen some backward people, but I've never seen them that I could say they was feral. They was just really off the grid country people.
I traveled in quite a bit of the United States. This isn't just Appalachia. This is in the Sierras. You know, we're talking about California, Oregon, Washington. Talk about parts of Nevada. There are people that just live out by themselves.
Yeah.
They don't always wear clothes either.
No. And it just don't seem common this day and time, does it? But it still happens.
I've been exposed to many unusual things. I don't know if you remember Mount St. Helens.
Yeah.
I was working around Mount St. Helens when it went off. I was on the backside of it, and I wasn't on the side that killed everybody. It's not fun to be on a volcano when it blows off.
Oh, that was a big earthquake for when you. How close was you to the mountain? You must have been
on it.
You must have been on the northwest side of it.
I was. I was doing some sampling.
Because it blowed out to the east, you know.
It blew to the east. It killed people over that way.
Oh, yeah.
Well, when that happens, the ground falls away from you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just as big an earthquake as you can.
Well, I didn't know that one.
Well, I tell people all the time that I've been exposed to all the natural disasters, earthquakes, volcanoes, you know, landslides. I was in my Jeep on a job once on a rainy day.
And hit by lightning 3 times.
And hit by lightning. But if you're in the environment like that, you're going to be exposed.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to have trees fall on you. I was chased by bears, bitten by snakes. I mean, when you're in it, you're going to get exposed to it.
I've been in it, but I've not had the bad luck you had.
Well, I never think of it as bad luck. You're just in it, and it's going to happen.
Yeah,
any serious hunter that's been out in bad weather, they could have been hit.
So you haven't seen anything else besides feral people? You not anything you think it's Bigfoot or signs or?
Well, I mean, I saw what they call the Marfa lights out near Marfa, Texas.
Yeah.
And, you know, everything the environment has to offer, I've seen it. Yeah. I've been around it.
Yeah.
I was watching a man fishing up off of Lake Superior. I saw him pulling a fish that was bigger than he was. I didn't even know they existed in Lake Superior. It was so big that he had to bend over backwards to get the tail in the boat. And I was just on the shoreline watching. Well, I didn't know that existed.
What kind of fish was that?
Well, they call it a lake trout. I guess it's a muskie.
My goodness. Well, you know, I've not actually seen no Bigfoot, but I've had some weird encounters that I've made stories on. I've had things go through the woods, Paul, not 50 foot in front of me, tearing the woods down, and you couldn't see a thing.
Right.
It didn't exist. There was nothing physically to lay your eyes on, but you could see physically the limbs breaking, trees are moving like something was coming through, was invisible.
Mm-hmm.
And I was ready. I had that 12-gauge shotgun. I was ready to put some lead to it, but never seen nothing. He just went on by me.
Right.
And I thought, what in the world's that? I made stories on that. And I've heard, what they call the old mountain people, cougars or panthers or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There is no such thing as panthers, they claim. They know these mountain lions and cougars. But the old mountain people here in this part of the country, Appalachia, they call them painters.
Right.
Just an old term.
Right.
Painters. It's probably just an old mountain lion and stuff. They've heard them scream. A lot of stories on that.
But there's also the Indian stories.
Oh, yeah.
Would talk about. Now, they didn't call them panthers. They had their own term for them. And prior to intense colonization in this continent, there were actually jaguars here.
Yeah.
The jaguars that you find in Mexico and South America,
Yeah.
they were actually here. And there's one variety of it, of a jaguar, that's black.
Yeah.
And in fact, you can find them now in California, Oregon, and
Well,
Washington.
you dig that through history. When the pioneers come in here, they stories of, they called them painters because they was black.
Yes.
And they panthers, jaguars, whatever,
Yes.
mountain lions,
Yes.
but they was black. And they swear up and down the biologists and the game wardens, they're not never going to admit to that. But they can't deny the mountain lions in these mountains now.
Right. The Florida panther
Yeah,
is a jaguar.
yeah.
They're not all black. So there's no reason to believe that they're. If you hear a story of one, there's no reason to believe it can't be true.
Yeah, well, that's what they say.
Who's
We're
got
all
the
seeing
pictures, though?
That's what I'm saying. They got pictures on trail cameras now. People's got pictures of them.
So when I hear a story about something unusual, especially in the back country,
Yeah.
I don't poo-poo it. I think there's something real about it.
So what gets me, these wildlife biologists and these game wardens especially, they're going to tell somebody that's been in the mountains 60, 70 years and knows everything about their country and their mountains and what's in it and what ain't, that they didn't see what they thought they seen. That's what gets me,
I think there's a lot of things that we may not have an explanation for. I just think there is an explanation for it.
Yeah.
Did you ever see a water witcher?
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of people that will.
And Paul, a lot of people claims it's bull crap. It works.
There's a lot
If
of
you've
people.
if you've got the gift, it don't work for everybody. I can make it work.
Well, I've come to the conclusion, based on my experience, that we are capable of understanding more than we're told we can.
Yes, I
Like
believe.
if you've ever been a serious hunter and you get a sensation that you're being watched,
Oh, I've had that a few times.
you are being watched.
Yeah,
The question is, how do you know that you're being watched?
it's just intuition.
It's a big mystery.
Yeah,
Well, my thought is, having experienced this a lot, that our normal senses of sight and sound and feel and smell, they're subtle.
yeah,
You may not be able to recognize a subtle smell, but if your ears hear something unusual and you smell something unusual, and seems to be something wrong with what you're looking at in the environment, you're sensing something and you don't even understand it. It's there, it's real, and you can't define it.
Well, I've had that experience a few times. When everything's just normal in the world, you hear, You hear jar flies, you hear birds singing, you hear certain sounds that's just in nature when you're out, and then it all of a sudden just turns off.
Stops. Yeah.
There's something ain't right.
Or even just one of them. You could have birds.
Yeah.
You could have bees.
Yeah.
You could have crickets. All of it stays the same, but the crickets stop. Why did the crickets stop?
Yeah. Why did the birds quit?
Why did the birds go? Well, there's a reason for it.
Yeah, there's a reason for it.
Now, if you don't, if you haven't thought about it, if you haven't studied on it, that just leaves you with a mystery.
Yeah.
But it's real.
That's real.
So I don't make fun of people who are witchers.
Yeah.
I'll look at results. But it's not impossible for a person using their natural senses to pick up on clues in the environment that will help them understand where water is, where oil is. Now, from the scientific point of view, I know why water is where it is. I know why oil is where it is. And having dealt with witchers, I know what it is that they did and why they did it.
Yeah.
So it's not a mystery to me, but I don't poo-poo it.
Yeah.
Because I can't possibly understand everything.
No. Well, see, you've been educated in all this geology, and you know the basics of everything like that. Well, these old mountain people, most of them, never went into finished high school, They're just old mountain people, and they learn it the hard way, and they learn it from their elders and their grandparents, and it's just handed down through generations. Now, there might be, everybody thinks we're just backward people in these mountains, but they lived it and learned it the hard way. Now, they have a lot of superstitions, but that's a whole different story.
Well, even the superstitions are based on somebody's real experience, and they've put it together the best they can.
I figured most of the time in these mountains that people see, they claim signs. Well, they've just associated over the generations. When they see when something bad happens, something in nature's happening at the same time, and they associate that with that each time.
Right.
And it's just handed down through the generation. And most of the time, it's true.
And there's no reason to believe just because a person makes an association that it can't be real.
No.
From the scientific perspective, it's a sort of like, well, maybe it's real 70% of the time, but that's enough.
Well, I think too, and I'm a firm believer, that each person has a gift that they was born with, God-given gift. Some people have gifts that they don't want, and some have gifts that, they know. By the time you're adults, you know what gifts you got, what your talents are. But some people can see things that other people can't see. See, people could hear things that other people can't hear.
When I became a geologist working specifically outdoors, I did that from something that I learned as a Boy Scout, that I was good in the environment. The way the trees grow, the way the rocks lay, the way the water runs, the color of the dirt, my senses picked all that up and created a picture.
Yeah.
And when I went to college and learned what all that stuff meant, my skills and my training then went to work and was useful to help discover resources that can be turned into jobs, into money. That's my skill. What I'm not good at, I'm really not good with people. I'm not really good with understanding how people feel or think. I have trouble talking with people. Why? Because I'm thinking environment, I'm thinking science, and they're thinking how they feel and what they want and what they need. That's my skill. That's what I do.
Yeah.
I can recognize that other people are better at stuff than I am. There are very few people better at what I do, but I'm not going to compare it. You do what you do, I'm going to listen to you.
Well, Paul, I want to thank you for sharing your little stories with me. And you got anything else you'd like to share? I'm going to just say thank you, buddy, and thank you for your time.
Well, you're welcome.
Wasn't them some incredible stories? And also, he likes to collect old tractors and work on them. He's got dozens of them sitting around. Old Massey Fergusons and Fords. But that's for another video. We'll check that out a little later. But I want to thank Paul. It's such a privilege to sit down with some of our elders, our older people, and hear their stories. They've got so much to share. So I want to thank you for watching. Hope you enjoy these little videos of our people. So I want to thank you for watching. God bless, and I'll see you next time.